He is the better half of the Move the Sticks podcast.
Hey.
He is, which is must-listen-to material where all podcasts are acquired from the NFL Media Group here on the Rich Eisen Show, fresh off of a mock draft 3.0. Bucky Brooks here to help us kick off our draft month coverage of the NFL draft. How you doing, Bucky?
I'm good, Rich. What's going on?
How are you doing? So, are you aware, Bucky, your 3.0 that for some reason Daniel has a 3.1 out? Is that a topper? Is that he's just trying to top you here, Bucky, on the mock draft? What's going on with that?
I mean, we're always competing, and so I don't understand the difference between mine being designated 3.0 and his being designated 3.1.
What's up with that?
I have to get with him on the next podcast, kind of figure out what that is.
Yeah, I do. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the number to the right of the decimal moving in the mock draft world. I would definitely bring that up to him on the next Move the Sticks podcast.
I definitely will. Maybe that has something to do with like all the maneuverings that we've seen with the trade. And maybe because it might have been right after Deshaun Watson goes and the movement with the Texans, so he did a quick amendment to kind of figure out how to get another mock draft out there.
Right.
I don't know. I have to figure that out.
All right. Well, I don't mean to. Look, you guys do such a great job. I don't want to cause any dissension, even though I guess I just did. Okay, let's jump into this here with your mock draft. I would be, as a Jet fan, so thrilled. They go and get Sauce Gardner at 4 and Kyle Hamilton at 10. How real do you think that is? I would sign for that literally right now, Bucky Brooks.
Well, I mean, look, I think this is, for the Jets, I think it's a realistic possibility for them to do it. One, you have to understand the links and the ties. Robert Saleh spent time with the Seattle Seahawks. He saw what the impact the Legion of Boom had on that team. And so what most coaches do is when they go somewhere, they try and recreate their previous destination and what they had. And so in Sauce Gardner, you have a guy with the length and the size that Jet fans will think of Antonio Cromartie. Robert Saleh may see a Richard Sherman type guy because the length will allow him to stymie wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. He is an outstanding competitor. He's a guy who has all the tools in the toolbox that you look for on the perimeter. He tackles. He is a guy that is really wired the right way. So I think New York won't overwhelm him. This is a guy that just loves ball, and everything in his background suggests that he's going to be an A1 player because he's committed. And Kyle Hamilton, what you're doing is you're having a blend, a little mix of the Cam Chancellor physicality and toughness, middle line of scrimmage, a guy who absolutely destroys running backs in the hole. But then he is different because you don't see guys that are 6'4", 220 pounds who have the ball skills that he possesses. And so he's a guy that can play in the box, and he's just as comfortable playing in the deep middle. And so if you're Robert Saleh, you got a chance to get both of those guys in the top 10 to really fortify a secondary that should be a new and improved defense. I think you feel good about handing the cards of those guys.
And how fitting or ironic it would be that to I guess, replicate, as you point out, a Legion of Boom type defense that they use a draft choice from Seattle that they got in a Jamal Adams trade in order to actually pull off that double dip. That would be quite something. Kayvon Thibodeaux is third in your list to the Texans. And DJ, Daniel Jeremiah, your Move the Sticks compadre, had the same thing. What was your take on Thibodeaux's combine? And you now combine it with pro day material. What do you make of the evaluation coming out of the combine and him still being now third on your and DJ's mock draft list?
So I would say that Kayvon Thibodeaux is one of the more talented prospects in the draft class, but he's also one of the more polarized. And the reason he's polarizing is because on the field, what you see is a guy who's a flasher. Stepping onto the scene as a freshman, he goes and gets 9 sacks right away at Oregon. He is dominant off the edge. He has 7 fourth-quarter sacks that freshman season. But then we never quite saw a level of dominance where he stacked on top of it. So you have that where it kind of leaves you wanting more. And then, look, he's a big brand. He was the number 1 overall recruit when he came out of the class. He's a guy who has done these phenomenal deals off the field. And so, fairly and fair or not, some people kind of judge him and wonder if he's focused enough on the game. That said, the guy is super talented. And in a league that is built on passers and pass rushers, he's one of the best in the game. And in the right system with the right coach, this guy could be a superstar at the position.
So you think he's going to go third and Trayvon Walker second to the Lions? He looked so good at the Combine, Trayvon Walker. So good. He's incredible.
Yeah, he is. And so, like, here's the thing, Rich, about Trayvon Walker. I wasn't really as high on him early because I'm like, man, I see the athleticism. I see the guy do a bunch of different things, but the production doesn't necessarily match the potential. But then when you get around a bunch of D-line coaches in the league, they are just absolutely captivated and smitten with this guy's athleticism, his movement skills, the explosiveness, and what he does. And so then when I posed them, are you worried about the production and where do you play him? They were like, no, because, like, the stuff that he has, you can't coach. Now it's about putting him in a position where he can maximize his talents by chasing the pass and getting after it and going hard and doing those other things. And they were like, don't judge him on the production based on who was around him. Because remember, Jordan Davis and Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean and all these other first-rounders, the top picks from Georgia, were all on the same defense. So, look, there's only one ball to chase. There's only one play that can be made on a given down. So don't judge him on the production. But when you look at the tape, he does pop. And that's why he's in conversation not only at 2, he certainly could be a reality at number 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Which would leave Hutchinson to stay put in the state of Michigan. And Bucky Brooks, the way you have it all mocked out right now, the Giants would have their choice of offensive linemen. That's exactly what, when they hit their knees at night over the next several weeks. Is that what they're looking for with the Giants in their front office right now?
Well, absolutely. If you go back, like, just think of the name, the Giants. And going all the way back to when George Young was there, the reason the Giants have always had a preference for big guys is because they are the Giants. They believe that the game is played up front in the trenches. You need bigger, better bodies up front to be able to win games consistently. Knowing Joe Shane, because we worked together in Carolina, he's a guy who loves prototypes. He wants to get big, physical guys at the point of attack that can maul people and mash so you can run the football when you need to run it, but you also can protect the quarterback. And so when looking at the draft class, you have Evan Neal from Alabama, who is probably the more refined, technically sound of the guys in that bunch. And then you have Ike Ekwonu, who's just a freak athlete who is nasty and kind of changes the tenor of the room when he shows up, because he is kind of the nightclub bouncer that throws guys out for being unruly patrons. And so when you see him just throw guys on the field, it kind of catches your attention. So one of those guys could be the pick for the Giants, and I don't think they could go wrong with either one.
Bucky Brooks here on the Rich Eisen Show. We've reached the draft month, and we're moving down Bucky's mock draft here on the Rich Eisen Show. Rank the wide receivers. How do you see the wide receiver group? It's so deep. They look so terrific at the Combine. You know, you got teams like the Packers and now the Chiefs having lost or traded away their top wideouts. They're now in the business of adding some big-time talent. Walk me through how you see the wide receiver group in this draft, Bucky.
The wide receiver group is really interesting because it comes down to flavor. Right? It's like going to the ice cream shop and trying to determine what flavor do you want on a given night. And so do you want the big-body playmaker like a Drake London who can absolutely dominate and crush it on the outside because he can win 50-50 balls? And then you have Traylon Burks, who also kind of fits the bill as that big-body playmaker. And then you have these little scooters, right, these fast guys that can make plays, whether it's Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave. You have guys down the ranks and Sky Moore. You have another playmaker in David Bell, who's not quite in that category, but guys who can just kind of make plays. And so you have to figure out what you want. When I think about those two teams, the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the reason why teams are more comfortable letting these elite wide receivers go is we're seeing these young guys come in and have immediate success. And so I believe out of that crew that we talked about, we may not have the Jamar Chase type where you can see them going in the top 5 and they're immediately going to pop. But these guys in the bottom of the first round, they are intriguing because they are right now ready. Plug and play, put them in, they can make big plays. And I think you're going to see a lot of these guys come back up in conversation when we talk about Pro Bowl bids and nominees as first-year players because they're going to have opportunities to be on a major stage and make plays right away.
Well, I mean, on your mock here, Bucky, the fact that you think this, and if this happens, that the Chiefs get Sky Moore from Western Michigan, you know, Tyreek out, Sky Moore in. Obviously, there's a large amount of shoes to fill with the Cheetah. But I saw this kid work out. I heard what DJ said about him and other evaluators like yourself, that would be huge. That would be tremendous if that kid winds up in Kansas City. By the way,
it'd be tremendous because you have to think about this. There's been a lot of conversation about Tyreek Hill and him being 1-1, and he is a great player. But you have to understand, when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him, they drafted him in the 5th round pick. He was a punt returner. He was a former running back coming out of Oklahoma State and going to another destination before he get to Kansas City. No one knew that he was going to be a number 1 receiver.
Right.
So Andy Reid and those guys have the confidence in knowing that not necessarily that they created Tyreek Hill, but they discovered and developed and nurtured that kind of talent. So they feel like they can go back at the draft, and a draft is increasingly producing more talented wide receivers that can step up and play. They're confident that they can find a player that won't necessarily replicate that production, but will give them a more balanced wide receiver core. Because you have to remember, Pat Mahomes' struggles a lot of times were attributed to the sandlot play that he and Tyreek Hill had developed. Well, now Pat Mahomes will probably play a little more discipline and detail from the pocket, and then you need raw runners, guys that are dependable and reliable in terms of getting to their spots. If they find guys that can do that, and Sky Moore is one of those guys that can do it, I don't think you will see any drop-off from the Kansas City Chiefs offense.
All right, last one on your mock, and then one more question before I send you on your Friday, Bucky Brooks, my colleague from the NFL Media Group and Move the Sticks podcast. I'm very proud of myself. I didn't bring up quarterbacks to the very end here. Your mock draft, 0 quarterbacks in the first round. Simple question, what's up with that?
Well, the main thing is this, Rich. Like, so you and DJ, I heard you guys when I was doing the coverage on the field. You guys were waxing poetic about the impressive combine performances of all the quarterbacks. And then you know what happened, Rich? On Monday, we got on the plane, and then there was a series of dominoes where every quarterback in the league was traded. Russell Wilson left, Aaron Rodgers go, Richard Carson Wentz go, and on and on and on. And so my immediate reaction to that is, as high as we might have been on the quarterbacks and how they perform, the league got a chance to look at those guys up close and personal, and maybe they don't have the same opinion of those guys. And it also is altered and impacted by the fact that when we looked at the postseason and we saw Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow, and we know that Justin Herbert is out there, you now are not only comparing the quarterbacks in the 2022 class against each other, you're looking at them compared to Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and the superhero powers that they have. And if you don't deem the player or prospect that you're thinking about in the first round to being able to match up with those guys in the shootout, you better serve to move on and wait for another guy to come. Because you know that in the end, the tournament is determined by the best quarterbacks. And I don't know if these quarterbacks have the superpowers of some of those other quarterbacks that are in the league that are 25 and up.
So then which one that doesn't go in the first round, and let's say this actually happens, who does have the best chance to be Russell or Dak or, that third, fourth, even, Derek Carr, second, third, fourth round picks who have terrific careers and Super Bowl possibilities in them?
I would say Desmond Ritter's the one to keep your eye on.
Huh.
The kid from Cincinnati is interesting. He has 44 career wins. You saw the performance that he put up at the combine in terms of his athleticism, 4.4 speed, 35-inch vertical, which speaks to his explosiveness. But it's the way that he managed that offense for Cincinnati. But getting this team, a group of 5 team, to play in the playoff and winning games and doing all that speaks volumes. And so when you look at the quarterbacks that do the Dak Prescott kind of thing, they kind of do that stuff in college when Dak Prescott took Mississippi State and made them the number 1 team for a stretch there during this time. I think Desmond Ridder is the quarterback to keep your eye on because, to me, his experience and his overall explosiveness will give him a chance to be a really successful pro in the league.
How about that? All right, Bucky Brooks. Look, last thing here, you're a humble man. Anybody can hear that in your voice. You don't say things with your chest. You don't puff your chest out. You're even keel. That said, come Saturday night, if your Tar Heels beat Duke, how impossible will you be to deal with? To give everyone a little idea of what Tar Heel Nation would be like if they send Coach K packing for good.
The Nation got a little taste of it when the Tar Heels went into Cameron and sent Coach K out with an L. I would think that we would be insufferable if we have an opportunity to officially end it. And so the difference is, though, like, if you win the semifinal, you have to cap it off the right way.
Sure.
Because it just wouldn't look. longtime Tar Heel fan since birth. Like, championships are kind of like the standard. But this would have a little extra sweetness if we could kind of send Duke and everyone packing in the Final Four. Like, it's a big deal. You know how that thing is, kind of like the big game with you guys in Ohio State. But this thing here on Saturday night, oh, that's going to be epic if my Tar Heels pull it off.
Oh, I honestly, like, you can't script it, right? I mean, it's one of the greatest rivalries in anything, and it's the first time they faced each other in a winner-go-home NCAA tournament, and it's the Final Four, and it would be to end Coach K's career. Like, that would be it. It would change. You couldn't get any smack talk from a Duke fan the rest of planet Earth existing, right? I mean,
no, like this would be. Look, it would be beyond belief, and I've been there. I've been at games when Duke has won, Carolina's two, and vice versa. But this is different because, like, there's this feeling that Carolina is this major underdog, and everyone views Duke as the evil empire, and like Carolina right now, I guess it's going to be the little engine that could. But in their minds, because they're 8 miles away, because they play pick-up ball against each other all the time, Carolina doesn't view Duke like that. And so because of that, there's like this respect, but this inner competitiveness and hatred that these teams have for one another.
Yes.
It's going to be, it's going to be a game. I hope my guys show up, and I hope we play well. But this is going to have the makings of being a classic, and we get a chance to see it in the Final Four.
Where are you watching it? What's your plan tomorrow night? What's your plan?
I think because I don't want to be around the people, I think I need to scream at the crib. I think this might have to be a little home viewing to be able to do it. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Like this one is a lot. It's a lot, Rich. It's a lot, Rich, to watch.
Well, you heard the country music star Eric Church canceled his concert to go to the game to watch the Tar Heels. Did you hear that? You heard that story?
Rich, yes, Eric Church, yes. I saw that. Like, Rich, the affinity that we have for Carolina is much like the way that you feel for your Wolverines.
No.
Like, shut it down.
Shut it down.
When the Tar Heels on, you shut it down. And so I understood that. He was like, money be darned. I am going to watch the Tar Heels in the fourth. And just so you remember, it's the Superdome. And when the Tar Heels in the Superdome, everyone goes back to the shot because that's when Mike became Michael in '82. So we can talk about the Coach K thing. But as a kid, I remember Michael Jordan hit the shot. And so my expectation is the Tar Heels are going to run that back all over again.
Yeah. Look, man, I also know whenever Michigan played Ohio State, and again, the stakes are huge, obviously, but this is a totally different stratosphere. I always have a couple of Ohio State guys who I know or gals who I'm going to text first. Do you have a Dookie in mind that you would text first?
I feel like I normally don't do that. I don't really engage in that. Like, DJ and those guys are trying to get me to poke the bear a little bit. I don't really do that, Rich. Like, it's kind of like the expectation that we're going to win, and so it should be a surprise when we win. So I just kind of go about it. Like, I think I learned a long time ago from Marty Schottenheimer. He said, look, when you win, you say nothing. You don't have to say anything because everyone knows you win. So that's the expectation. I expect to, like, pop on Twitter late at night, like 9 o'clock, West Coast time, after Carolina wins, and start thinking about, hey, who we signed up on Monday. That's my expectation.
I will be thinking of you, sir. Thank you for the time here. Let's do this a couple of times at least before the draft, and I appreciate the time today. Thanks, Bucky.
All right. Hey, man, appreciate you.
You got it. That's Bucky Brooks, everybody. He's a Tar Heel through and through. How to go out the door with that.
When you win, everyone knows.
Oh, it's on. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.